Chica. This discussion is all about, should you wait until Tom leaves the house to start your round of HCG? This actually has got to be one of the top 5 questions that I get on a frequent basis, so I thought it's time to make a video about this. Why didn't I think of this sooner? Maybe it's because it's about a woman's period. Shh. There, I said it. Is anyone listening? So this could be considered a kind of TMI, too much information subject, which is possibly partially why the HCG diet community has attempted to make it sound less icky by calling it TOM, aka time of month, but really it's just your menstrual cycle or your period. Whatever the case, it's important to talk about everything, including all of these nitty-gritty details, because they really do matter. It's like when you go into labor. Do you start worrying about the gown being open in the back? Nope. All you care about is getting that baby out and everything turning out all right. At least that's how it was for me. This is really no different, because it's just like having a baby. Doing the HCG diet and doing it right can literally change your life. And as always, when I answer a question, related to HCG in general, I try to just give you the different factors to consider so that you can make, the best choice for your particular situation. So why did Dr. Simeons recommend that you start HCG after your period? To be honest, I have no idea. He didn't explain it in his book, and sadly, he's no longer around to ask, but I'm not going to leave you hanging. There's actually 2 reasons that I thought of for why it might be a wise choice to wait until after your period is over, or after Tom is over. So we'll talk about those. The first reason is that you might want to save all of your PMS symptoms for when you're already used to the strictness of the HCG diet. And the second reason is that you can actually not lose weight or even gain weight while you're PMSing on HCG, which can be really difficult. So we'll talk about both of those. So the first one is the idea of saving all of your PMS symptoms for when you're already used to how strict the HCG diet is. I think we all agree that, the whole period and PMS thing is almost always accompanied by hunger, cravings for sweets or something just that you wouldn't normally eat, emotional mood swings, grouchiness. There's just all kinds of symptoms that we experience, right? Usually around that time, husbands try to lay low or stay out of your way. And the thing is all of those PMS symptoms that you experience on a monthly basis, are still the same on HCG, and sometimes they're actually even worse because you are on this restrictive diet. You don't have your usual chocolate or whatever it is that you use to comfort yourself. You're living in a state where it's very controlled. You're having to give up a lot of what you would normally do, and you're now throwing on top of that PMS symptoms. So being on HCG doesn't make you immune to those PMS symptoms. Most likely you're going to experience the cravings for whatever you usually crave when you're PMSing, right? And, I'm pretty sure that what you crave while you're PMSing is not, 100 grams of chicken or half a grapefruit. So that can make it's just that being on HCG is already hard in itself. And then when you're PMSing, it's just that much harder. So consciously knowing that being on Tom while on HCG is going to be difficult, I feel that it may be easier for you to get through it if you wait till you're VLCD adapted. And what I mean by that is that, you've already gone through whatever carb withdrawals that you may experience the first week of HCG. You've kind of gotten into a groove with your P2 meals. And, it's been a while since your last drive-through McDonald's or your last burger, so you're no longer thinking about it every day and, trying to be self-controlled in that way, because there's already those things to adapt to when you first start the diet. And you want to be able to focus on that and not make it more difficult than it has to be. And then, when you start HCG right after your period, by the time your next period comes around, if you're on a 6-week round, you'll be past all of that and you'll be into that groove of VLCD. There's a jumping spider on my camera right now. Boy, the things I go through to make fun videos. Anyway, in a nutshell, the idea is that you're adjusted to this new temporary lifestyle, if you will. The second reason to consider starting HCG right after your period ends is that when your period does come around, you can often retain water and not lose weight on HCG for a few days, or even possibly gain weight. While you can never really expect weight loss on HCG every stinking day, despite claims that you may read on other sites. In fact, I have a whole post about stalls and the HCG diet, which I'll link to in the article that goes with this discussion. But the fact is that PMS is definitely one of those things that plays a role in those periods of time where you're stalling out, seemingly not losing weight or gaining weight and stuff like that. Now, the reason that this relates is that the number one thing that people expect out of HCG in return for, following its really strict rules and all the resulting mental suffering that it can cause is good results, right? So while your weight loss is stalling or, possibly even going up while you're eating only 500 calories, and on top of that, you put your PMS symptoms, which are making you want nothing else more in the world than to have a big piece of chocolate cake or something, that just creates a really ideal scenario for cheating or giving up. You might feel frustrated, disappointed, discouraged. It's a tough time. So now, you may experience most likely you will experience this whenever Tom does come, whether that's early in the round or later in the round. However, there are times when it's going to be easier to experience all those emotions than others. And my feeling is that at the beginning of a round, when you're still adapting to the protocol and maybe having some carb withdrawals where it's already feeling a little difficult, that may be the lesser best time to go through that versus later, like I said, when you're already adapted to the diet, you're kind of used to it, you're into your groove, and then going through that then might be easier for you to handle. So what if you aren't a newbie to the HCG diet? I mean, does that really apply to you? You already kind of know the ins and outs of the protocol, you know how you feel on it. Again, in the end, you have to make your own choice, and I'm going to talk about some factors that may actually make you go ahead and do HCG even if your period's coming up soon or something. But my personal feeling is that even for those of us who've done the diet, I don't think it necessarily gets easier. And I think when you're off of it, you tend to forget how difficult it is. I know I did that. I would do my round. By the end of it, I'd be just dying, to be done with the protocol and oh, this is so tough. And then you're off of it for several weeks. And then you start thinking about your next round and preparing. And it's kind of like you're excited because you kind of forget how hard it is and you're just thinking about the weight loss. And it's true, you do forget. And I feel like with every round that you have, there's always kind of this adaptation phase, where you have to readapt to the diet and the groove of it. And it takes several days, I think, to do that. And so that's why I kind of tend to favor the idea of a woman's menstrual cycle happening a little later in the round if possible. Or if you do a short round, a 3-week round, you may be able to avoid having Tom on HCG entirely, which seems like it would be nice. So I guess in a nutshell, my basic feeling is that, especially for those who are new to the protocol, but really for all of us, I think there could be a higher failure rate on the diet if you have to go through the newness of being on HCG, the start of it, and your PMS, symptoms on top of that at the beginning of your round. I actually do get a lot of emails or messages from people who start the diet and only a few days in are already considering quitting because it's so difficult. And that's kind of partly what a lot of my videos are geared towards, is helping you guys realize, not to paint a somber picture, but just that this diet is difficult and to be prepared for that. Because otherwise it's just this rude awakening where it's wow, this is hard, and because you weren't expecting it, it's easier to think about quitting. But it can be easier if you're strategic about it, and like in this case, saving those PMS symptoms till later can, you know, take some of the edge off possibly. So that's just one of the reasons why I think it might be a good choice. Let's talk lastly though about when it might be a good choice to start HCG at another time that's different from, you know, right after your cycle. Because of everything we've talked about above, I think ideally you'd want to start your round of HCG after your period ends, which is actually how I did every single one of my rounds. However, there's also a lot of other things in life that contribute to making this protocol difficult. Things like get-togethers and vacations and stuff like that. So in cases like these where, you know, you're looking at your calendar and you're trying to figure out where HCG best fits in with all of the other things that you have going on in your life, I think the idea is that you want to pick the time slot where you're going to experience the least amount of temptations. So, you know, if it comes down to a choice between, you know, doing HCG and being on it while on a 10-day vacation to Disney World with your family, or, you know, starting HCG a few days before your period starts, you know, in that case, it's probably going to make more sense to go ahead and start HCG a few days before your period starts, because that's probably going to involve less, you know, temptation and less difficulty than trying to do it while you're on a vacation with your family. And, you know, ideally you want to have nothing going on when you're on a round, but unfortunately, you know, I live in the real world, you live in the real world, and that's just not always possible. So that's the ideal scenario, but when it comes down to it, if you have to make a choice, just again, look at it for you personally. What are you going to find most challenging? And try to avoid that, and go with the less challenging option, basically. I actually have another video that I'll link to in the article that's basically all about planning your round of HCG in advance and how important that is to ultimate success. And so I'll link to that for you guys to check out, just to help give you some feedback and ideas on how important that can be to your journey. So now it's your turn. I'd like to hear your experience with HCG diet and TOM, good or bad. Tell me what it's like for you when you are on TOM, on HCG, when you started around, you know, right before TOM, or you did it the best way and waited till after. Just, I'd love to hear your experience. Share it in the comments. It's really helpful to everybody else for them to help make their own decision. So anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. You can find me on Facebook, HCGChica, on Instagram, HCGChica, and of course my blog, HCGChica.com. If you want to stay up to date with my latest articles and posts, the best way to do that is really to get on my email list. And you can do that just by going to my website, HCGChica.com. Pretty much any blog post you go to or on the sidebar, you'll see a little option to get on my email list. And that really is the best way to keep in touch. Okay, you guys, take care. Bye. And this is really no different, because just like, oh dear, there's sun on my face. Wow, there are a lot of bugs out here, you guys. I guess that means it's a good thing that there hasn't been a bunch of pesticides sprayed, but it's making me a little uncomfortable. Now, the reason that this relates, oh, it's a bird. Okay, whew, thought it was like a dog or something.